Hey, y'all, and welcome back. Finally, welcome back to another episode of Coming Into Bloom. This is episode number 7, even though it feels like it's episode 107. But anyways, I have with me today my husband, Brent.
Hello,
Say hello to everyone.
everyone. Hello. How are y'all?
I hope that your new year has gotten off to a great start. Caitlin will be back next Monday. This episode was supposed to come out before Christmas. And unfortunately, we did not have an episode at all because it has been super busy. There's been a lot going on with the farm. Even though we haven't had a podcast episode, we have definitely been busy behind the scenes.
We've had a lot of cold weather.
Yes, it has been very cold here, which is hilarious because on several of these episodes when we first started out, we talked about how hot it was and how you could grow flowers year round, and it never snowed here. And even though it didn't snow, it definitely got very cold over the Christmas holidays. So anyways, we are here, we're back, and this is January 9th.
And it's hot again.
It is hot again.
Yes.
I feel like we're back to normal. We are wrapping up our harvest season for the year. And so
The ice and cold wrapped up our harvest season.
well, that's
didn't wrap
true.
up
We
anything.
did not wrap it up. The weather wrapped it up for us. But that's why this episode is just now coming into bloom.
We've been a little busy, just a little bit the past couple of weeks. It's been a lot more than we would have thought about this time of year. That's for sure.
And it was very unpredictable, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've never had citrus fruit frozen like a solid ball of ice up
Right.
next to a tree before. That was pretty.
We'll
pretty
have to
wild.
post. We took some pictures of what it looked like out there, and we will have to post them. You'll have to check out our social media accounts, and we'll put those pictures up there. But we're going to talk about all of that, the freeze and everything, a little bit later. Right now, we are going to just jump right in, and I'm going to let Brent introduce himself. And why don't we start with your farming history? So how did you get started in farming?
My dad made me do it. No, I'm just kidding. I grew up on a farm most of my life, and my dad did everything with my uncle. We did tobacco, and they had soybeans, cotton, corn, rye, wheat. God almighty, they did everything. It was like a farm like you would imagine them being, where it had just a little bit of everything going on. We didn't have pigs when I was alive. My dad, they kind of escaped one summer.
The pigs?
Yeah.
What do you mean escaped? They killed them and told y'all they escaped?
Oh,
or...
no. Apparently they all got turned out and escaped into the wild one night. So,
Really?
yeah, it's a pretty wild story. You have to get Mike to tell you about it sometime. It's pretty neat.
So you were in FFA? Is that right?
I did FFA for a little while.
And you showed cows or pigs?
Cows and pigs.
So
Yep.
y'all had that.
Yeah.
Where? Where were they located?
They were our house on Bemis Road,
Okay.
and there's a little barn. It's a livestock barn that was kind of back to the left of the house, and we kept them back there. What?
You're beating on the table. Gosh,
That's what I'm saying.
This is like having an episode with the kids.
Well, I talk with my hands too. I just don't knock
However-
over microphones.
Well, however, when I listened back to that episode, you definitely couldn't hear as much as I thought you could hear. So maybe you can't hear all
We're
that.
good. I'll do like this. I'll do like proper.
Okay, so your dad
Yep.
was farming when you were growing up,
Yes.
and then in high school,
Yep. High school.
Still
and-
farming?
Yep.
and then you decided absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. We, in fact,
So
I think it was
tell-
my junior or senior year in high school. I got a job at a vet's office. I thought I was going to be a vet for a while. I didn't realize that.
Oh
I
wow,
had an
that probably would have been a
extreme-
much better occupation.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize I had an extreme dislike for cats until I actually worked there.
Oh,
And,
right,
Yeah,
right,
see, it
that's
seems
true.
that women over the age of 65 that are single tend to like to have their cats bathed, and it's a little bit of a challenge if you've ever tried to hold a cat in water.
Gotcha.
It's a little violent.
I haven't because I don't like cats either. So
I had scars on my arms for a couple of years after that.
So you thought
Yeah.
you were going to be a vet.
Thought I was.
And then what happened?
I hated cats, and I
Okay.
decided not to. But I started doing that job because, one, it paid really well, and it got me out of the tobacco fields after lunch. So when it got real hot in the afternoon, I'd leave my brother and all my cousins and friends out there in the tobacco field, and I'd go work in the air conditioning,
In the vet's office.
Yep.
So you worked there
bathing cats.
junior. Okay, we got the cat thing. So you worked there junior and senior year, or
Yeah, junior and senior year. And then when I realized I wasn't going to be a vet, I really didn't. I had no idea what I wanted to do in college at all. And, not to be rude to the family, but it's not like anybody was joining up to help me fill out applications.
Oh yeah,
So
no, I definitely understand that.
yeah, it's kind of one of those where you had to figure it out on your own. And then, so I ended up joining the Marine Corps, and I did that for over a decade.
So you joined the Marines when you were
Yep.
18,
17.
17,
Yep.
graduated from high school,
Yep.
and
Turned-
shipped off.
Turned 18 in basic training.
Wow. And tell
Yep.
us about basic training. Where was it?
That was in
How
Camp
long?
Lejeune. There's only two places they train Marines. So
Okay.
San Diego and Parris Island, South Carolina. And
So you were in another state
yeah,
at barely 18 years old.
yep. I was up there, and it was basic training, man. I mean, you get yelled at, and you do what you're told. But I mean, I grew up on a farm, so we were always getting yelled at. That was kind of part of
So-
it. So it wasn't nothing to me. It was pretty easy.
So after the military, so you join,
Yep.
you stay in for 12 years.
Yep, I did my first enlistment, and I thought about getting out then, and then I ended up staying. That was after 9/11. So I went ahead and re-enlisted and stayed in for another 4 years, and then signed up for another 4 after that. And then I decided mentally and physically it was about time for me to move on. So
Do you know how many deployments you did,
I did
during that time?
three deployments. I did one special billet, which was a recruiter. That was horrible. Hated that job.
Where was that?
That was in Mississippi.
Okay.
Probably should have not said that.
Well, you act like so. I was not married to Brent while he was in the military, even though I do know a lot of the answers to these questions.
Yep.
We were not married. We didn't even know each other when he was in the military.
Yep.
It wasn't until the end of his military career that we met. So he was in, but it was your last
4 months.
6. Oh, I was going to say 6.
Well, I mean, I got out in May, and I
Oh,
met
did
you in February.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was the last couple of months left, and he was
She was smitten.
he was at Camp Lejeune,
Yep.
right? And so I don't know if I told the story of how we met, but anyways, we met through my sister-in-law, and I had actually introduced her to her husband today, and then years and years and years later,
Yep.
she introduced me
years.
to Brent. Brent is her husband's brother. So, anyways, it's crazy how all of that worked out. But we were not supposed to meet until you got out, which was when? I don't remember.
Well, I was supposed to get out in July. I got out a month early. though.
Okay, so we
earlier
weren't
than I
supposed
was
to
supposed
meet
to.
until June, and we were getting married that August.
Yep. They were trying. They were trying
So
really
you do
hard.
the math.
They were trying really hard to get everybody out. It was post-war. They were winding both of those wars down. So they were just like, hey, we'll give you an extra 25, 30 grand if you'll get out early. I was like, I'll take that.
Oh,
So I
wow.
left 2 months ahead of time.
So you leave the military
Yeah.
after 12 years
Yep.
being in it.
Yep.
And then, like I said, we got married in August. So I was living in Albany, Georgia. He was in, where was that?
I was in Topsail.
Topsail Island. Gosh, I could not remember the name of
I
it.
was living good, man. I had
Yes, you
no
were.
attachments.
You
All I
were.
had was a dog.
No, but I'm talking about when you got out. You
Oh,
did
when I
have
got
an
out, no, I
attachment.
didn't.
by
I had you.
then.
Yeah, well, I got back here and
Yeah, so we moved into an apartment
Started working with
in
my dad.
Valdosta,
That's
and he
great.
started farming with his dad again.
Well, I mean, the first time I was more of an indentured servant, I would think. It was I didn't voluntarily work out there. You were just told to get up and go to work at 6:30 in the summertime. So
Right.
that's the way it worked back then.
So you came back, started working with your dad, and did
Yep.
you know then that you were gonna buy a farm, or did you want a farm, or what were your
I didn't really
original
know,
plans?
I didn't really know what I wanted to do to begin with. I knew we wanted to run that pecan operation for a while, and I think my dad wanted it to grow into this real big, couple thousand acre whatever monstrosity that he likes the big farming with the big tractors and the big everything. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. And I think I was trying to just wing it. I was newly married and I had completely switched careers halfway through
Right.
12 years into my adult life. So I was just hoping I could not fall flat on my face. That was what I was hoping for.
So we both moved back to Valdosta and had an apartment. You were working for Mike.
Yep.
Dean was born in December.
Yeah.
And then how long did you work for Mike before we...
We were working, 2 years? I worked for
Okay.
him up until, I think 2016 is when he turned most of the farm over to me. And,
Okay.
but up until then, he had his farm and I was working mine, trying to grow it year by year.
But under his
But under
name,
him, yeah, he was teaching me how to do it.
Right.
And some people learn how to run a farm when they're real young, and some people, like, you just don't learn until you're actually doing it yourself.
Right.
And, so it took a couple of years for me to really figure out how to do it. I mean,
yourself, yeah.
just because you grow up on a farm and you're driving a tractor in a field doesn't mean you know exactly why you're doing it. Most of the time your dad or whoever's in charge is just, hey, get out there, hook that up,
You're
go do
being
this.
told.
Yeah, you don't understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
So it takes a while to really learn how to plan, learn how to understand bugs and diseases and problems. And, so it took me a few years to learn that. And then, in the middle of all that is one of our landowners that my dad had been working with for years she was ready to sell her farm. And it was a great orchard. So I talked to my dad about it. I went up to the USDA. And but some farms are handed down, and others go get loans and build their own stuff. And it's not that one's better than the other. It's just that's just how.
Oh, I definitely think one is better than the other.
I'm
We
sure-
differ on
I'm-
that
I'm
because
sure you do, but
I think getting it handed to you is a lot easier than having to build it up from
Well,
nothing.
it is. But at the same time, I mean, things are the way they are. So you go with the hand you're dealt, and you build from there.
You're
And
right.
So I went and got a loan from the USDA to purchase that farm, and she also wanted me to buy another farm down the road as part of it. It was nothing but cut over stumps and timberland. I mean, it was scrub oaks.
The whole land
Oh yeah, the whole thing was.
yeah.
Yeah, 20 acres of it's still swamp, but you can't do anything with
So
that.
you bought a piece of property in Lakeland
Yeah.
that was nothing but pine trees and
Yeah.
stumps.
Yeah, it was 60
and-
acres. The other 48 was most of that was a pecan orchard we'd been taking care of for years. And
So that was established.
yeah, that was already established, and we already had yields on that. We had been taking the whole thing. We've been taking care of it forever, and so we bought that along with this property. And I started clearing this off after work every night for 2 years? It was
remember.
forever. I mean, we
I
bought it
feel
at
like I
13.
wasn't present during any of this
Well,
because
we had two kids
I
at
had
the house.
yeah
They were babies.
yeah. By
baby
then
babies.
we had 2 kids, 18
Yeah.
months apart. So I was just at this point I was not in the farming world.
No, definitely not. In fact, I wouldn't get home until 9, 10 o'clock at night, and me and one of my buddies, we'd take turns for a couple of hours running the excavator, just ripping stumps out of the ground. And the alternative was to find $40,000 somewhere to pay a company to come in and clear it all for you, or
Do it
I could just
yourself.
sacrifice my nights for 3 months in the wintertime every year and do it myself.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We just did it ourselves. And
So when we bought this place, it was nothing, pretty much nothing.
Yeah.
There was nothing here. There was no pecans. There was no citrus. There were
We
no
had
flowers. No house. No electricity.
we had 3
no
acres on the very front corner. that had
What'd
been
you
planted.
say?
3 acres of trees on the front corner. There was no irrigation,
yeah.
no water,
Yeah.
nothing. And I remember when we stacked stumps one winter, all the stumps that we'd pulled them all out and left them laying there, and then we couldn't mess with it all year because we were busy doing all the pecan orchards. I was still working for my dad. I was his employee at the time, so I was doing all of that. And then the next winter, we pushed them up into piles and cleared off the area for the house, but we didn't get to burn them because it kept raining all. That was in 14. We had a huge amount of rain that winter, the next winter time, and so we never got to burn the stumps. And then the following year, right before we built our house, that's when we got to burn the stump piles. But they had rotted so bad that they had to put smoke signs on either end of a Good Hope Road.
Oh, wow.
Because we made this entire 8-mile stretch of road was nothing but smoke for like 2 days. It was horrible.
Yeah, I
got made
definitely,
fun of
I
a
was
little.
not present for, I don't think any of that.
No.
So we had no house, if you've ever been to the farm, none of what you see today was here. We literally started with nothing, just a piece of land, and made it what it is today. So the first thing that went into the ground was pecans.
Pecans, yeah. We planted those we planted some before we moved in, and then when we built the house, we planted that winter also.
And how many acres did you plant?
That was 20. So there's about 22 acres up in the front of the house.
And just for those of you who don't know much about pecans or farming in general, it takes 7 years,
7
right?
to 10.
7 to 10 years for those trees to start producing. So we put those trees in almost a decade is what you have to wait
They had their first
to get a crop.
They had a pretty decent crop this year. It wasn't
And what year is it in now? The eighth, ninth?
6th or 7th year.
Oh,
Yeah, the variety we put out here, it won't produce a full crop for another 2 years, but it'll do a little bit.
so we had pecan trees. We put those in the front, and then how many years after that did we get into citrus?
I was just looking at some pictures on an old phone, and it was 2017, and we were building a greenhouse behind the house, and there was no citrus back there. So I think it was
Wow.
2018 we planted our first grove back there, and then
And those
Yeah.
take how long to produce a crop? 4 years, right?
yeah, 4th year they'll put on a pretty good crop.
So here you go with the tree fruit, sticking them in the ground, and there's zero profit. Zero profit
Yep.
for at least 4 to 5 years.
Nothing but cost.
Nothing
Lots of
but cost.
Lots of labor, lots of cost. And for a while, the pecans were covering all of the costs, and they were doing a very good job with it. And
Well, you
probably-
say all the pecans. Now you've got to.
oh yeah,
you
well
need
we've
to
got.
expand on that a
golly,
little
we
bit.
went from, I think we had 400 and something acres when we were at our biggest,
Mm-hmm.
and we were spread out over 2 full counties, and then now we're down to I think 50 acres. Like we let go of everything.
Yes.
And it was just.
So it wasn't the pecans here that you're talking about. It was all the
multiple
other.
orchards, multiple locations, and after a while, it just got to the point where they weren't producing very well. We were hit with multiple hurricanes, really warm winters, and then that's bad for a tree that goes dormant. They like cold winters, and then
The price.
the price was
Went
horrible.
down.
God Almighty, it's been terrible. But $5 diesel, and then
Yep.
$1.15, $1.20 pecan. That math never works out very
Math
well.
didn't math.
Yeah,
Math
no.
wasn't mathin'.
No, math was the addition didn't add; it subtracted. When you're in negative numbers, they just don't really exist. So,
So we did pecans for. So when did Rolling Branch Farms become that?
that was 2018.
2018.
Yep.
So we did primarily pecans when we first started.
18 through 2020, and then right after in fact, the year the pandemic hit, that was when we really started we had our first good citrus crop that we sold. What I would call a wholesale crop. Like before, we were selling before that. Because we had trees down at Mike's place in Dasher, but our first real big crop was in 2020. That was when we.
Was it really?
Oh yeah. That was the first
Gosh, I
time,
thought it
first
was
year I
sooner.
drove. No, that was when I first was driving up to Atlanta and dropping off.
Because I thought my first the grocery stores was in 2020.
no.
Because I had a mask on.
Well, maybe it was 19 then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't 2020 because in 2020 I started going to Atlanta.
It's all running
I know
together.
it is.
I don't
I just
really
remember
anymore.
you went with me and you took a picture of me inside the store and they weren't letting people in yet. So
Yep.
I had to wear a mask because we were, I
Yeah.
guess, technically a delivery person or whatever. And
Well-
so that picture was taken. I have a mask on, which I
Yeah,
know
that's
had
right,
to-
because 19 was the first big price drop with pecans because of that trade war. And then what had happened was in 19, the price of the pecan and nut crops started dropping because China was already experiencing the first effects of COVID. And the problem with that was most of our exports were going to China. They were like the biggest purchaser of U.S. pecans.
Right.
And what had happened is they were already shutting their country down, and we didn't shut down until January or February. It was about 2 or 3 months later is when we in the U.S. started feeling the same effects they were feeling. I remember all that stuff going around on social media. It was like, oh, there's people dropping dead in Wuhan. Like, it was crazy. So,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that was November and December of 2019 when they started.
Oh,
So
my headphone, sorry. My headphone just knocked out of my ear.
messing up my flow here, woman.
Sorry. So anyways, 2019
Yep.
is when
That was when
We
we had our
really
first real price drop in
okay.
pecans. And with any type of tree crop, you put your entire investment in up front, and then at the end you might get paid back. And there's not really contracts for what we do. And
Right.
you can get them, but if you don't deliver, there's penalties. And where we're at in this hurricane belt, you may not be able to deliver. And there's a lot that goes into
and this
those.
is a new crop. You're
Yeah.
talking about pecans or satsumas?
Well, I'm talking about pecans right
Oh,
now,
okay.
but the satsumas we started in 19. So yeah, 2020 would have been your first year because it was a few months after my first season is when you started delivering up there.
2019,
as well. So,
I graduated from that workshop. So yeah,
fun.
and started the farmers market. So yeah, so 2019, we started selling citrus.
Yes.
You would say
Yep. And
at our.
we were doing it 2 years prior to that, but it just wasn't. It was maybe
was like our real
40 or
year.
50 cases
Yeah.
here, 60 there. The first real deliveries took place in 19. That was when
Okay.
we were full blown going at it, and I think 2020 that November is when we went into all 11 of those stores up there, and we
Yeah.
just God, it's been going crazy ever since.
So Rolling Branch Farms, the brand,
Yep.
became, because at first it was Brent Biles Farms, and then we
Yes.
changed it over to Rolling Branch Farms.
Yes.
And how did we get the name?
I would love to say that there was this great just idea that came to my head, and what really would happen is that to have an LLC, you have to apply in your state. So you can have the name of your you can have the same name of your business, and it can be the same as one that's in Texas, but you can only have your LLC registered in your state, and it can only be one business with that name. And what happened is every name that I would even think of was a horse farm. Like I don't know what horses have to do with trees, and it's insane, it's crazy. But you'd be like, oh, well, something with leaves. Let's say have trees. Trees have leaves. Let's come up with a farm name with the word leaf in it. No,
Can you
all of them are
remember
horse
any
farms.
of the
All of them.
names?
Like Falling Leaf or something like that. Like it was a horse farm. Like who? And it was an LLC. It wasn't just like somebody just had the name. It was like
Yeah.
that LLC. And I'm like, who?
And then also Orchard was
Orchard
was
is
taken, of
like in
course.
computer software programs, but all have the word orchard or grove. Like it's
Oh,
just
Grove. Yeah, that was another
it's
one.
it's infuriating. it really
Well,
will
there's a lot
drive
of
you mad.
businesses in Georgia.
It's not just businesses. It's like come up with a name that pertains to you, idiot. Like don't come up with names that pertain to what I do. Like I'll be like, oh man, I think I'm gonna be. I want to be a peanut farmer. Let me name it Surfs Up International.
Surfs
like what?
So our logo, I'm trying to remember how our logo came to be.
You did that.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
Well,
how.
I wanted to have a tree in it, of course,
Okay.
because I do trees. And then you wanted to have like the little fences, and then you sent it off to a marketing designer, and they threw the barn in there, and we liked it.
Oh, that's right.
and
That's right.
rooted
that's
in
right.
quality. I like that because it was rooted in quality.
Yeah.
But the farm name, I wrote that one on my list during the hurricane in 16 or 17.
I remember you
17.
coming to
Yep.
me with different
Yeah,
names.
and you didn't want to hear any of it. And I listed them all out, and you're like, yeah, that one.
This was still back
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I didn't really care about
Yeah.
farming. I was
Yep.
in town. I was surge checking and could have cared less what was going on.
That's
here.
right. And I was trying to come up with a good name, and I was like, Rolling Branch Forest. And you're like, yeah, that's fine. Just do that one.
Yeah.
And I was tired of it, and we were cleaning up from a hurricane, so.
Because, see, I was on another episode, I talked about how the Flower Shed logo came to be and that I didn't really take it seriously. And I just went and got a pre-made logo and
Yep.
stuck my name in it. But this one was different. I remember like going back and forth with a graphic design person because, again, Canva was not in the mix.
And you also were running it by me, and I would be like, nope.
Right,
nope,
right.
nope.
So that logo took a lot. There was a lot more time and effort put into that than the Flower Shed
Yep.
one. And so, anyways, that's the logo that you see today is a barn, and it has a little fence, and it's kind of, I would say, like cartoony.
Well, there's a couple
Sort
little
of.
trees. It'd
And
be
then
like
there's some trees.
It'd be like somebody who took a regular picture and did like a cartoon twist to it.
Yeah.
Not like a straight up
Yeah.
cartoon image, but. you
And
know.
then when we sat down and realized that our fruit and stuff was going to be going into grocery stores, we realized that the box that your fruit comes in has to be eye-catching,
Unique.
very unique.
Yes.
And so that was a whole other beast trying to figure out the box. So if you've ever ordered from us online, or if you've ever seen our logo, bought any of our pecans or anything like that, you've either seen the box or you've seen the logo, and
And it's
just,
all over the box.
it is all over the
Yeah.
box.
That-
But we take a lot of time and effort when it comes to designing those things, and even more so now that Canva's kind of in the picture and I'm more in the farm, designing that stuff takes a lot more time and effort than the Flower Shed stuff.
Pick the right slogan too.
We did, yeah.
We throw out and donate probably the fruit that we deliver. We probably 50% of what we donate, or some of the food banks have programs where they'll buy from you, but most of that fruit is still a U.S. number one. It's totally sellable to a grocery
Well,
store.
we've been told before that our number ones is the
way too graded way too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're like what a grocery store number would normally get as a number 2.
We don't even pick that.
Yeah,
throw it
we
in the
don't
ground.
even pick it.
Yeah.
So I was trying to make sure I got all that right. That's why I was
Like,
talking like that.
But I mean,
But that's why if you're going to put that on your box, rooted in quality,
you got to hold up to
you
it.
definitely have to. And especially when your box is going to be seen inside of a grocery store with your logo on it, and that's
Wow.
your tagline, and crap is sitting in the bin with scarred skin, and
Yeah, we
it's just not
we
not
toss all
quality.
that.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can sell it, but if you pick it, it's good to donate it or sell it. But if you just don't touch it, you don't have a cost in it.
Right.
As far as harvesting.
Right.
And we get constant criticism from people when they come out here, like, pick it and sell it, take it somewhere, just pick it and donate it. And I'm like, every piece of fruit on that tree has a cost attached to it, each individual piece. And if you've never ran books on a farm, the margins aren't, you don't go out there and say, okay, we're going to make a 30% profit on everything we sell. You go out and say, okay, I'm going to grow all this. Everybody around me is making 100% profit margin because they can charge what they want. And maybe I'll be able to make a living. You don't get to decide what you get paid. You throw the price out and everybody tells you no. So,
Right.
with us, I mean, we were lucky. We were able to pick a pretty good price. We provided a product that's over delivers what we promise people. And
Yes.
yeah, we're probably losing a little bit on the front end, but I think in the long run, we're going to stay. If our trees are still alive out there, we're going to stay, and we'll be able to stay a little bit ahead of everyone. Not
Well, I
because we're
think
better
that's-
farmers, just
right.
because we're willing to sacrifice a little bit more up front than
Right.
most people are.
Right.
So,
And because that's on our box, I mean, it holds us accountable and
Yeah.
keeps us accountable. And then also,
I should have put.
That's what
Should
keeps.
have put no fruit left behind. Then we could have sold it all and just been like, yeah, we don't leave any fruit behind.
Well,
It's
I feel like
everything.
that's what makes us stand out is the fact that we, if you see our logo, you see that brand, you're getting a good piece of fruit.
Or you'll get it replaced.
Or it's going to be replaced.
Yep.
That's right. If it's an online sale and it shows up and it's not, 100%, then, I think all of the stuff.
You've replaced it every time.
Yeah, we've replaced it,
Yeah.
which we haven't had that many over the past couple of years. I'd say one a year,
Yeah.
maybe comes in. But it's replaced and
Most of the time,
done
it's,
and over.
most of the time it's with a comment that says your oranges are soft. They're not oranges. They're
Also,
mandarins.
if you see it in the
They're supposed
grocery
to be soft.
if you see citrus in the grocery store with scarring on it, the fruit is still good.
Absolutely.
The problem is the grocery stores don't want to buy like produce and stuff like that has blemishes.
Well, that's because the
you as the
consumer doesn't wanna pick it
consumer,
up.
right?
Yeah.
You as the consumer will not pick that up and eat it. But so that's not to say that if you see that in the grocery store, don't pick it up
Oh,
and eat it.
absolutely.
It's still good. That's the fruit that we put in our
That's all
house
we eat.
is the one that's
Yeah.
scarred up and stuff. And usually it's a little bit better too.
It
but
is. It's always better. It's fruit that makes it to harvest that doesn't have a hole in the peel. Usually, when they're scarred up a little bit or they have a little bit of blemish on them, they're going to have a sweeter taste. Mm-hmm. There's something
that's
about
been my experience.
there's something about when that peel gets damaged. I guess the tree adjusts the balance of chemicals and nutrients in the fruit, and I don't know if it just stops pushing certain stuff into it or what, but they'll have a much better taste sometimes. And,
Yeah.
there's nothing when you're talking about citrus and crops with a real thick peel. I mean, just buy whatever, man. It's not as long
Yeah,
as
I don't ever like. I
doesn't
mean,
make
if
a
it doesn't
difference
have
at all.
mold on it or whatever,
Yeah.
when I'm personally in the grocery
Yeah.
store and I'm buying stuff like that, I don't take a lot of time to sit there and feel it and pick it up and do all the things. I just grab it and go because I know 9 times out of 10 it's going to be fine because the grocery store's not even going to buy it if it has a
Well, they
type of
toss
blemish
out.
or whatever.
I think everything grocery stores buy. I talked to one guy once, and he said that they pretty much plan that 10 to 20% of what they buy, fresh,
Right.
perishable items, are
Yep.
gonna go bad sitting out anyway.
Same
And
with the flowers.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
they
it-
call that something though. It's called
what?
shrinkage.
Shrinkage.
Is it shrinkage?
Yeah, crop
You
production.
don't know.
I ain't got a clue, man.
It's the flower. I know the flower people. They call that something.
Yeah, they've got a name for
'Cause
it. I can't remember.
they-
Y'all tell us what it is.
Yes,
All right,
that'd be
it's a
great.
Homework
Let us know.
assignment for all of our 20,000 listeners. Or 20.
It's called something. But anyways,
I know,
they
like-
do it with flowers too.
Well, a cost is added for holding and storing something. That's called warehouse gain.
That's not it.
But no, that's definitely not it. Way off. Probably is shrinkage, I would imagine.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
Something like that, yeah.
But they already up front factor that in when they're buying
Yep.
produce and stuff because even with it sitting in the grocery store, some of it,
Oh
is
yeah,
going to
well
go
you've got
bad.
so many different products, and they put out a chemical called ethylene whenever
right.
fruit's ripening,
Right.
and there's so much of it in a grocery store, and the temperature is between 65 and 70 whatever degrees, even in the fruit and vegetable section, and you get all of that ethylene moving around, and some stuff's just going to rapidly deteriorate
Yeah, like
while
the
it's sitting on the
lettuce.
shelf. Yeah, oh yeah,
Like all the greens and
yeah,
stuff.
and with all of that coming into play, I mean, it's like, guys, if y'all see, I mean, apples, oranges, pears, as long as the skin's not broken, just buy it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's gonna be good, man.
Oh yeah, for
And if you
sure.
get something, and if you get an apple with a little wormhole in it, cut around it because that's the best tasting apple on the tree. I mean, that is the
Obviously, if the
that-
worm wanted.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the like your bugs and insects don't attack the best tasting fruit. They attack the stuff, or they don't attack the worst quality. They attack
right.
the best quality.
That's
And,
true. Same with flowers.
Yeah, I mean, well, there are some insects that go after damaged fruit, but like when you're talking about like a worm or any type of like you don't see squirrels out there picking up pecans that are only half filled out. They take the best ones.
Oh yeah.
And they leave all the crap for me
Same
to
with
pick up.
flowers. I feel like they attack the
Yeah.
most expensive ones, the ones that cost you the most,
Yep.
and the ones that look the best. They'll
Oh,
chew
yeah.
right on into the middle of it.
Well, like I always say, food security starts with you.
Food security.
Starts with you. The pathway to zero food waste is paved with the buyer.
Oh my gosh.
Does that work?
I guess. Okay, so we're gonna move on to.
I'll sell you whatever you want. Just let me know.
And maybe we'll try to I know this could probably take a while, but maybe we'll just try to sum up the pecan and citrus, or do you want to do one or the other?
We can do both.
So with the pecans, then we won't talk about where we started because we've already talked about that part.
Yeah,
so
that's my dad's stuff.
what about? So you said we have 50 acres now of
Yep.
pecans, and what does our future look like with pecans or the industry?
Well, I guess that's going to depend on the next year. I mean, this year again, and this has been across all crops in agriculture. When you have inflation hit, our crops are usually the last thing to increase. So, fuel goes up, parts go up,
yeah.
Electricity goes up, all of our chemicals and fertilizers, everything goes. I mean, most of our stuff went up over 100% within from January to March.
Yep.
So after we've already committed to growing the crop for the year, your cost goes up 100%. So instead of $1,000 an acre, now you're looking at $2,000 an acre. Well,
Imagine already committing to that and then finding out that never mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's going up, and then you look at the prices all year long for your commodity, and there's a few of them that came out really well. Like at the end, the price just went up really good. I think soybeans or cotton they had a pretty good year, but this should have been a makeup year for the past 6-7 years that cotton farmers have just taken it on the chin, man.
Right.
I mean, they've been getting hit as hard as we have, and so all of that good high profit that came in, it didn't go to them. It went to BP and Shell, man. They didn't get it. Bayer, Syngenta, all those guys got the profit, and the farmer got left with the same break-even price they've had.
Right.
And for us, I watched the price of pecans all summer, and they were up in the $2 range. And usually that means you're going to have a 70-cent drop by the time the main bulk of harvest happens in November. And which is fine. You know how to plan for that. But as I was filling up the tanks of our equipment, it was costing me, I think, $1,900 a week in diesel fuel just to spray our little 100 acres we had. And you can't, when you're going to have to spray trees 10 to 12 times, you can't sit here and say, oh, well, it is what it is. That's just farming. Math is math, man. Math doesn't care what business you're in. And
so that's why you see the 1 pound bag for $14 and $15.
Yeah.
Even though you're only getting $1, or you're only selling for $1, $2 at best a pound.
Yeah.
And then the consumer's having to pay the $14.
Yes. And
is because
everyone in the supply chain after the farmer is getting a really good markup. They'll tell us they're not, but you don't get the $14 paying me $1.30
right
without having a little bit of extra fluff room on the end.
And then the only thing that they're having to do is put it on the shelf, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, in certain ways, yes. And the thing is, everybody else's costs are going up as well. Labor's going up, transportation's going up, competition's getting real heavy, and you get into this spiral that if something doesn't drastically change, then you're heading for a point to where there's just going to be massive amounts of farmers walking away from land, and we're already seeing that happen. I walked away from 70, 80 acres last year. There are certain guys I know that were really, really big farmers, and I found out a week or two ago that they've let go of hundreds of acres, and nobody's taking that land. So,
nobody wants it.
No, I don't. I mean, I've had calls from 3 or 4 different people, and a couple of big growers have given my name to other people, and it's just no. We can't. We're not taking the very small 2% profit margin and then paying 16% to a landowner. Because that's basically what ends up happening. You'll have you'll have $100 an acre profit, but the landowner gets $150. So you're paying some other human being $50 just so you can take care of all of their stuff.
Right.
And it's like
and pay them for it.
Yeah, it's the most backwards.
And
farming is probably still one of the most backwards industries out there. I mean, as much innovation and technological innovation we've done moving forward,
I think
we
that's
still
for
have
like
one
the
of the most
bigger people
antiquated.
too. Yeah.
we have one of the most antiquated financial systems out there. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
What, like just the craziness that and I do it every year. You know, I go out there. Oh, this year's going to be different. It's not. It's never different. It's always the
Well,
same.
I've been saying that for like 8 years.
Well, I mean, I grew
now.
up hearing it every year. Every January, you know, you hear my uncle and my dad, and they're, yeah, this year, man, if we do this, this, and this, it's going to be good. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, torrential downpours, drought.
Yeah.
You know, there's always
So what
something.
about what about the citrus?
Well,
We said we were going to talk about the freeze,
Yes.
so let's talk about the freeze and then kind of where it's headed.
we spent 32 hours below freezing. We had 1 hour on Christmas Eve where we went to 34. And I know everybody's thinking that's above freezing. Like, well, the wind was blowing 15 miles an hour. That
So it felt like 19, 20 degrees.
when it says real feel on your temperature gauge, that's what every single living thing on the planet
Feels.
is feeling within that zip code around your house. Like that's I'm glad that meteorologists have this nice little box that they stick a thermometer in and they tell you the ambient outside temperature is 47. Well, if the wind's blowing 86 miles an hour out of the northwest with an Arctic chill and humidity of 15%, I think the what would that be? 26 maybe. It's if you can't walk outside without gloves on for more than 4 hours without getting frostbite, like your plants are gonna die.
Yeah.
And so,
but
for
also
us,
for our climate,
that's insane.
It's
We
insane, yeah.
were at, I think our nighttime average temperature for the first 2.5 weeks of December was in 63 degrees, which is high. It's way higher than it should be.
Mm-hmm.
And the citrus trees in our backyard and our backfield had started growing. We had some trees that had actual blooms on them. They're not supposed to have until February. It had gotten that hot, and it had taken some of our citrus had actually stopped maturing, and it should have been harvested before Christmas, and we couldn't pick it. It wasn't getting sweet, and some of our satsumas were rotting on the tree. They were they were getting real soft, and then the temperature started dropping right before Christmas, and by Saturday morning when we walked out there, I think the average, we had 5 hours where the wind chill was 10 degrees. And that is insane on a citrus tree. And it's not uncalled for in South Georgia, but it only happens every 10 to 20 years. But the length of time we stayed below freezing was enough to take all of the fruit in the very center of the tree that was maybe 4 or 5 inches above our water jet emitters,
Right.
and it froze it solid. Now, the purpose of the water system is to keep the trunk from freezing. Almost not my Porta Lisa. No, the
purpose of
purpose of the
emitters.
water
Yeah.
emitters during the cold is to keep the trunk from freezing, so that even if the top of the tree dies, you can just cut the top off, and after
Save
a
that
year or two of
foundation,
growth,
yeah.
it'll grow back to a full size tree. They grow really fast, but the problem we faced is that it stayed so cold for so long that even at 20 degrees with that water rising up, with that heat coming off of the well water, it still, I mean, it froze fruit solid. So we lost 30% of our crop this year is
And
on the ground
Let's try to put it into perspective. So we're normally harvesting
up until February.
satsumas until
No,
February.
satsumas are
Yeah.
until January, beginning of January.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's
Yep.
January. Okay, until January. And our satsuma harvest is officially over
Yep, that ended-
because of the freeze.
Yes, we had maybe another acre and a half left to pick out
And
of
then we're
12 acres.
normally harvesting and going and selling and all that tangerines and
Till March.
other stuff. I guess I'll say I'm not going to list it all, but anyways, other stuff until about March, and we're already about 2 weeks away from ending harvest, and it's January.
Well, we're
9th.
done harvesting. We just
Well,
have it,
yeah,
we have it
yeah.
all
Well,
in
I
the
meant
cooler.
like selling and.
Yeah, it'll be.
So what we did was went out there and grabbed as much fruit as we could off of the trees, stuck it in the cooler, and that's all when that's gone, that's gone. So
that's it.
the freeze completely, I guess, demolished our
wiped out
harvest.
the fruit. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Like some places you'll ride by guys' orchards and they don't look that bad, but you're 200 yards away on the road. So like my orchard right now, if you just look out there, it looks green.
Oh
And-
yeah, it looks really good
yeah.
from the road and,
And
stuff
when
like
you
that.
get
You got to
when
get
you get
up
about 5
close.
feet away from it, you
Right.
can tap one of the limbs, and those beautiful green leaves just fall right off. And
Or they're curled up.
Yep.
They have spots, little black spots on them.
yep, they are. And last week they looked like they were going to be fine, and they really did. Everything looked great, but it takes about about 14 days for you to really see the damage from a heavy freeze like that. And we are north of the traditional growing range for citrus.
Right.
And I mean, we've been down to 18 degrees before. The problem is the duration of that long of a cold freeze is something we haven't felt at all. I mean, we had a freeze in
Not
14
since
that
we
came in
started
November, and
citrus.
it was I think it went to 14 degrees. It was the year we planted trees, and my gosh, I mean, we had the tips of our pecan trees were breaking off. When I would shake them the next day after that freeze, and the tips broke off because the very tops of the trees froze solid.
Yeah.
But that wasn't even cold enough to kill them. But this was the longest time. I mean, we've had ice on the ground for what, 4-5 days?
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was crazy, man.
It was
But,
a very long time
Yeah.
before it finally all melted
yeah,
away.
it's ridiculous.
And
But-
then you were saying like earlier about the frozen fruit.
oh yeah, that stuff's rotted. Oh God, you can smell it.
I
It's
was just
horrible.
about to say, when you step out, you used to could smell like citrus, like
Oh, it smelled
blooming citrus.
citrusy
Smelled so good.
and-
Now it smells
yeah.
like rotten fruit when you walk outside
Yep.
of our back
And
door.
luckily,
So
luckily it
gross.
got so cold it killed all the fruit flies, so we don't have to
Oh,
worry about
yeah.
those little guys eating everything up. But it for the whole South Georgia industry, a lot of guys think that they're out of the woods, and the issue is that you're really not going to know the extent of the damage until about the beginning of March.
Right.
When those trees really wake up and they start trying to grow, that's when you're going to see a side of the tree just dies, and that the thing would look perfectly healthy the entire time, but because the cadmium layer inside the bark, that nice little green wet spot when you peel a piece of bark back, there's that
Right.
nice little green layer. What if that died? Until the tree's actively growing, you're really not going to see.
You're not going to know.
You're not going to see
yeah.
that damage.
So everybody keeps asking us, how are the trees? What are you going to do about the trees? And we keep saying, we don't know yet. We don't know yet, because we could say today it looks like we're going to be fine. And like you said, in March, that's going to be a different story. And I think a lot of growers that have gotten into this are going to
Yeah.
start to see just how demanding, stressful, and labor intensive these
I mean,
things are.
We've been doing. I hate to rub my face, but it's stressful. But
Well, they
we've been-
can't see you if they're listening.
Yeah, I know. Well, we've been doing this for almost a decade now, and
Yeah.
even though we're very successful at it, Lisa is amazing at marketing and branding and selling, and I mean the whole 9 yards. We're doing a great job with it, but there's just always something, man. I mean, it is, and that's just farming. A guy said it to me earlier, my truck driver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I just looked at him. I was like,
Well, I think that's
"God,
just
don't
what they're
say it."
conditioned to say, because they don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, well, I said,
but I
it's
told
insanity.
in a previous episode, I talked about how farming was like getting in those money machines, and
yeah.
they give you
Yeah.
like a time limit to grab as much money as you can.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always somebody standing out. Like, imagine somebody's out there with a baseball bat swinging at you while you're trying to pick
yeah,
up money.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
this is great. And then you got some guy up there with a bat just smacking you in the back of the head every chance he gets.
Yeah.
It's insane. There's no, and it's not that any business is easy to run. They're all hard. They all have their challenges. And I think this is the one where when
You
you
get
do
paid
have a
once a
challenge,
year.
it's not something you can maneuver around, because you're not just going to like, let me go out there and find a way to maneuver around an Arctic freeze.
Right, you can't. It's like Mother Nature that you're fighting against,
Yeah, what do they call them,
which is
acts of God
impossible.
or something?
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, but we should come out of it. I think the biggest challenge for us is going to be how many trees died, how many are alive, what's the crop going to look like next year, and
Right.
that's going to determine for me what I'm going to continue to do, and I don't have to keep farming if I
Right.
don't want to, and we've got our little 60 acres that's paid for, so we can just stay right here, and I can go out there and do my little piddling on Fridays and still sell to our normal customers and call it a day. You
Yeah.
know, we don't have to do the big commercial wholesales and stuff like that. But it may not be a choice. It may be it may just be Mother Nature decided that's how it's going to be.
Yeah, maybe Mother Nature doesn't want you to farm anymore.
I don't know. Maybe Mother Lisa doesn't want me to farm anymore. I don't know. What are you thinking there, Miss Flower Girl? We just planted your
I
ranunculus
mean,
this
I
morning.
definitely did not want to farm. No, I didn't want. I didn't want to have anything to do with any of this. And as you can see in the beginning of this podcast, I'm like, when did we buy this farm? When did we do this?
Yep.
Because I was just not in it. I didn't care. And
Yep.
I mean, I just recently got my own crop, and I've faced a lot of the stuff, not on the same scale by any means, but I've faced a lot of the like, oh, it's a heat wave, and now it's raining too much, and my flowers have rotted, and
it's crazy.
Like, I'm just over it.
Yeah, it's
like,
insane.
It's like you have to farm inside of a dome.
I know.
Where you can control every single thing in order to be successful, and nobody can do that.
I think farmers.
That's why farmers are always broke. People always say, why are farmers always say they're broke? And they have all these nice things, like a nice tractor and new tractors and stuff like that. Yeah, because the money went back into the business. It went back into the farm. They are broke as a personal human being.
Yeah, that's
like their electricity's probably off in their house, but the barn's going to be turned on. You know,
gotta have a cooler running.
Oh yeah, and let's not even talk about that.
I can build a fire in the fireplace.
Exactly.
But if my cooler's not running, my fruit rots, girl.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, farmers are crazy as all get out. I don't know any of them that aren't a little bit insane.
I know. And why in the world I thought this would be a great idea to jump on the bandwagon
You've
here.
You've done a great job with it. You've done an awesome job.
But it's not as easy as it looks. I've always said, like, you make it look easy, like anybody can do it. And maybe that's why so many people have decided that they think citrus is going to work for them. But
a lot of people, when you get into a business like this, it doesn't take, a lot of businesses start and it's within 3 to 5 years is when they fail.
Right.
With farming,
we just talked about
different.
That, me and Caitlin.
Well, it's a lot different with farming because it's more of a long-term play. So even if you're doing an annual crop that gets tilled up at the end of every year, you still have like a 7 to 10 year window where you're not expected to be able to be perfect at it. Mm-hmm. And what happens with a lot of farmers is that you'll see them, they'll start getting bigger and bigger and bigger by year 4 or 5. And then they'll have like 1 or 2 years where they do really well. And then after that, it just starts, even though they're still doing the same stuff and they're doing the same practices, it's like your energy starts to fade.
Oh, yeah.
After about 3 or 4 years. And that's that's where I'm at. It's year 12. And I'm just like, every day when I wake up, I look out that window, I'm like, God, why am I such an idiot? And I just keep going out there. I love doing it. But at the same time, it's like it's not like you're waiting for some new fire to get lit or waiting to make more money. It's like you just all that energy just gets sucked away slowly, day by day by day.
It does.
And one disaster to the next disaster to the next.
Me and Caitlin were talking about how you have all these like lows and you're alone in the majority of it until it's time for harvest. And when people start buying it, or like at the U-Pick, people are coming to the U-Pick and they're getting flowers. Yep. And then that's only like a very small smidge.
A few months out of a whole year.
Right.
Where you feel
you have to make it to that
you feel
point.
really good while you're doing it, while you're selling it, because everybody's excited and they're happy. They're real, just great customers, great people. Mm-hmm. And then you're just in the trenches for 10 months with no human contact.
Yes.
I think when I started working part-time up there with Ag Nutrients, that's when I told one of the guys, I was like, dude, I've taught more today than I have in the past 10 years. Oh, yeah. I hadn't spoken to anyone hardly at all.
You definitely get to know yourself very well when you're out there in nowhere with nobody around.
There's tractor sense and common sense, and they're not the same.
And you don't have either, or...
Shut your face. What are you talking about?
Okay, so we're going to wrap this up. So me and Caitlin do this thing called Generation Gap. Oh. And she is, oh gosh, I always forget, Gen Z, and I'm a millennial. But there is a slight gap in mine and Brent's ages, 5 years. Yep. So I was born in 1985. He was born in 1980. Yep. So I thought, it's not quite as big of a difference as like me and Caitlin. Yeah. But still, I thought we could still do generation gap because you graduated in 1998. I graduated in 2003. Yeah. So I looked up a couple of things that were popular when you graduated.
Yes.
Okay. So how about Google was founded?
Yeah.
When you graduated?
We didn't have that. We had, I think Yahoo was there, and then
I remember Ask Jeeves. I don't know if you remember.
I remember that wasn't in 98 though. That was I think we had Lycos and Yahoo. Lycos was like the black lab, and the guy would throw like a bone or a frisbee, be like, Lycos, go get it, and he'd go running off and go shoom, and make the noise, and then it would go shoop, and he'd come running back up real fast and be like, good boy.
And it would tell you the search.
Yeah, it was a little search engine.
Yeah, no. So I just could not believe that Google was founded when you graduated. I thought that was crazy.
Yeah, they didn't have any of that, man. We had AOL. But no, actually, I don't even think we had AOL in '98. What did we have? We had some chat room thing, but it was archaic. I can't remember.
Well,
what it
the
was.
other thing that happened in 1998, which I also thought was crazy because I feel like I was so young. Anyways, Titanic came out.
saw it
The
in
movie. You saw it in theaters?
Yeah.
I don't. I think
Yeah.
I did.
I remember going to see it. I was a senior in high school.
What's crazy is when I went
I
to,
think.
it was either
Yeah.
a homecoming or a prom, and it couldn't have been in 98. It had to have been in like 2000
Yeah.
or 99. Yeah, that would have been my freshman, sophomore year. So it must have been homecoming. But the movie Titanic, they came out with a line of dresses because, what was her name? Rose.
Rose,
She
yeah.
wore all those like sequin dresses
Yeah.
in the movie for like the dinners and stuff like
I
that.
just remember being astounded that there was a break in the middle of it. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah, it
we
was
got
a
to come
long
back in
movie.
here for this stupid mess.
Anyways, they made a line of like prom, homecoming dresses, whatever, that mimicked hers. And I wanted one so bad. And I remember going to the dress store, trying it on, and I was like, these are hideous.
I remember
They were
laughing when
terrible.
they got kicked off the door. That movie,
The door?
Yeah.
You mean the piece of wood?
whatever it was.
Whatever it was.
Anyway, look, I was so ready for that movie to be over. I was 17. I was a guy. Like, I was not entertained in the least by that movie.
That's just
Like,
crazy. You were graduating, and I was like starting my my high school career. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you call it a career, but journey. Also, minimum wage was $5.15.
I made $5.45 working at the vet's
I
office.
feel like I remember this because I started working when I was 13 for
when I started, it was
attorney.
$3.75. I think it was
3.75.
14. I think they went up to $5.15 like in 97 or something, 98.
Well, 98
Yeah.
it says. And then gas was $1.06. And I do remember gas being this cheap because I turned 16 in like 2000, I think,
Yeah.
and gas was still
There
about
used to
that
be
price.
a gas station, I thought, in front of the old Kmart.
Kmart,
In Valdosta.
what?
I think it was somewhere in that area. I
Are
can't remember
Kmart's
exactly.
open today?
I don't know. Maybe like 2 left on the planet. But I remember there was a gas station right across from that. And it was when I started driving. It was like a few months after I got my license. The gas was like 94 cents.
Yeah.
And I remember everybody was lined up getting that gas.
At
man.
Jones
I was
Z
like,
Mart in
I
Hawkinsville.
filled up my little truck. I filled that thing up. I think it was like $18. Like, it was
Wow.
crazy, man.
Yeah,
it was
I
good times.
remember it being below $1 in
I
Hawkinsville
remember when I
too.
went to over $2 the first time, and everybody lost their crap.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
like 2000,
yeah.
2001.
Yep.
It was nuts. On base, it was low. It was still like in
Yeah.
the dollar range. So everybody was going to this one guy on our over there where I was stationed at in Lejeune.
Yeah.
They were all going to this one guy to get all their gas, and he was the same guy that did your inspections. So if you didn't like hang out with him and give him a little extra here and there, he'd fail your inspection.
Oh my gosh.
Great guy.
So we're not like I said, our age difference is not like me and Caitlin, but there's still some crazy differences within 5
yeah.
years, I would say.
Technology stuff, you're all over
yeah.
that. Like
Are
you
you-
use your computer all the time.
Yeah.
I use mine and yell at it.
So,
Like, that's-
but you're not a millennial, right? What are you? Do you know?
It depends on what you ask. Like whoever writes the generation thing, they
Yeah.
always count themselves into Gen X, but then they change the date. So I have no idea. I think I'm right.
oh wait,
there.
Caitlin's Gen Z. So
Yeah.
you think you might be Gen X?
Some of them say 80, some say 79, some say 81, some say 75.
yeah.
I think it depends on how old the person writing the article
Yeah,
is
yeah.
online.
But
as
what-
to when
what
they
is
count
that,
it. So
Gen
Gen
X?
X would be the one before you.
Okay.
So
You're definitely the one before me.
wow, that's just
You
vicious.
graduated in 98. I
So
graduated
what?
in 03. So I'm a millennial. You are Gen X. You are old.
I don't think it works that way. I don't think you get to just be like, all right, you're going to be Gen X.
We're just going to say Gen X for the purpose of moving on.
I mean, if anger makes you Gen X, I'm very angry.
Another thing that me and Caitlin do on the podcast is this little game called Name 5. And
Played this
I
in the
tell
car.
this story about us having this in the car. But anyways, I've shuffled these up.
We played it like 10 times.
But I found it in the car. That's why.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you draw a card,
Okay.
pick one of the categories, and then we're going to try to come up with 5 things within that category. Caitlin never takes this long.
Well, that's because she probably doesn't read them all.
Well, she probably will just go with one.
Let's see. Brands of chewing gum.
Oh,
I would go with problem-solving strategies, but that's a little stretch.
brands. So like Trident,
Trident,
Extra,
Big League Chew,
Big League Chew,
Big Red.
Big Red. What is the O?
Orbit.
Orbit.
Yeah.
I like that one.
Eclipse.
Eclipse.
Yeah.
Crest has one now.
like
There's
Crest.
a lot. Yeah, Crest has a whitening one.
Okay. Yeah. I think I'll take my chewing gum from a company with experience.
Okay, so that's 5. That's our 5 brands of chewing gum.
Yeah.
The last thing that we're going to do is quote of the week. And I thought this, I mean, I obviously didn't know like what all we were going to talk about on the podcast, but I feel like this quote.
I feel like I complained the whole time about my trees being dead.
No, you didn't. I feel like this quote definitely sums this podcast up. It doesn't get easier, you get better. And
Nah.
I think, yes, I think that's very, very true because, I mean, just today we had to go out and transplant my ranunculus into the greenhouse
Yeah.
because it wasn't enough work to bring anybody in. And, I mean, we did that in like, what, an hour, if that?
No, it's like 20 minutes.
It did not take us very long at all. And I could tell you that 4 years ago, it probably would have taken me all day to do
It
it.
was taking me 2 hours to get you out of the house 4 years ago.
Well, that's true. I did not like to go outside of the house because of snakes. There's a lot of trauma there with that.
Trauma. You almost put your hand
and-
inside a garter snake. That was hilarious.
And just a couple years ago,
you did.
second year of flower farming, there was some snake trauma going on there as well. So I was
Yeah.
a little scared to get out of the house.
So you are getting better.
We are, exactly. It doesn't get easier.
And you're really good at
I've
it.
gotten better.
I hope you stick with it because you're really good at it.
That's what my mom says.
Yeah.
You're just getting it off the ground. I hope you stick with it.
The problem with you is you'll get bored.
Yes, I get bored
Yep.
very easily.
That's why we're doing a podcast right now.
I like to
You got
jump.
bored.
Well, no, Caitlin thought it was a good idea too.
Well, I thought it was a
And
good
then my
idea 2
friend
years
Christy
ago.
lived
Yeah.
to give podcasts.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you got bored. You didn't have much going on with the flowers or with the oranges or the pecans, and you were like, let me find something to occupy.
Yeah, and now here we are.
all this extra time that I don't really have. I just imaginary have at the moment, and now you're doing a podcast.
And here it is, 2023, and I'm only on episode number 7.
Episode number 7. Yeah, that was probably my fault. We were a little busy. We were making 2 deliveries.
And
a
I had
week.
already told Caitlin,
Yeah.
like, we're done with the podcast because you were coming on last. And then here it is, January 9th, and I should have been returning with Caitlin, but that's okay.
That's fine. Hey,
Because
you're doing a
they got you.
podcast.
You're right. We got a podcast. We got an episode up with you on it. And so mission
Yeah.
accomplished.
The next one will be better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't get easier. You get better.
No, I'm always better. I don't get better. I was born better.
Oh my gosh, whatever.
What?
Anyways, that's going to wrap it up because we have definitely hit the hour mark. Even though I try to make these things under an hour, I don't think that
think
ever
anybody cares.
happens. I don't think they do either.
think
But
they're
that's
fine
just
with
me
it.
personally. Personal goal of mine to not talk so much, but never happens.
I live with you.
I also got most talkative when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I was voted that.
I can see that.
Anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast channel, Coming Into Bloom. If you like the video component of your podcast where you can see us and our reactions and all that great stuff, you can definitely find us on YouTube by searching The Flower Shed. Rolling Branch Farms also has a Facebook page, TikTok, Instagram. The Flower Shed also has all 3, plus the YouTube with the podcast. So check us out, subscribe to our channel so you can keep up to date with what's going on. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and
Buy some shelled pecans, man.
Yeah, and
Amazon.com.
visit our website, www.rollingBranchFarms.com. You can click shop now. And right now and moving forward, the only thing on there is pecans. We'll have those available for the rest of 2023 until they sell out.
Yeah, probably forever. I've been there growing our yard. We'll have some of it.
But anyways, thank you guys for joining us. Happy Monday. I hope y'all have a great week. And I promise we will be back next Monday with a new episode.